Hi, it's me again. Jeez, I'm not ready for this. You're so cute. So, hello, it's me again. My last video was kind of a mess. Today we're gonna try and do it a bit more structured. As per usual, I've got my tea. Today I also have a dog with me who you can't see right now, but maybe at some point during this she will get up and leave because, I don't know, it's always an honor when she decides to drop herself down next to me. She kind of hates me sometimes, but yeah. Today I have the best books that I read in the past decade. Now, I know that I'm incredibly late with this. Everyone has already done this in January, but in January I did not have the guts to get in front of a camera yet, so we're doing it now because I did want to make this video. In the past decade, I've read a bunch of really great books that I think I wouldn't really get the chance to mention otherwise, so here we are doing this video almost halfway into the year, but still gonna do it. So the first book I already talked about in my last video because it is my favorite book of all time, and I told you that I read this because I heard Hannah from A Clockwork Reader talk about this book, and that book is none other than The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book was basically my gateway into magical realism. Before I read this, I was not aware that that was like its own specific genre, but it had always been something that I really enjoyed. The thing about this book is the plot is not incredibly strong, but what I love most about this book is the atmosphere that it creates, and the writing is just beautiful in my opinion. This book right here was just such a joy to read, and it just sucked me in from the very first sentences because it starts out describing your experience as you go into the circus. It is a very mysterious story, and that is something that I'm an absolute sucker for. So this book, I don't necessarily love it because the plot is very well crafted or the characters are very strong. I just love this for the world that it creates, for the magical feelings that it gives me, and because I've kind of made it into a tradition where I read this book every year on Christmas. Last year I kind of failed with that, but yes, I just love this book and I want everyone to read it and I want to talk about it with people. Read this, it's great. And I have a hard time explaining why it's so great, but it just gives me such good feelings. And sometimes you just need a book to give you good feelings. You don't necessarily need it to be very well crafted, but like in a way, this is well crafted because this is already a freaking mess. I don't know what to say about this book other than it's beautiful, it's magical. It is just wonderful. I'm speechless. I have no words. And you have to read this. If magical realism is your thing, and if mysterious magical worlds are your thing, read this. Please do. Don't expect a very compelling plot because you probably won't get that, but if you just need an escape from the real world and need some magical world to sweep you away, then this is the book. This is it. And that's all I have to say. Ooh, the next one. The next one. The next thing that I want to talk about is a series, and currently there are 2 books out in the series. I cannot wait for the third. I love this series with all my heart, and that is the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. I never know how to pronounce her last name, but Jessica Townsend, that's what I'm gonna say right now. I saw the first book, Nevermore, in my local bookstore around the time when it first came out, and I saw the cover. The cover drew me in. It's a stunning cover. It's really beautiful. And I opened the book, and well, then I was greeted by this, which is also just stunning. And then I flipped to the first page. I read the first line, and I was pretty much sold. The first line of this book is, "The journalists arrived before the coffin did." I'm a person who really likes weird things. This sounded like just the most beautifully weird children's book ever because it is a middle grade series. So I decided to buy it. Pretty soon after I read it, and I fell so in love with this world and with the entire story and everything about this book. I'm just gonna quickly tell you what it's about in case you have not seen people talk about this yet. I know that Emma from Emma Books has talked about this and she really loves it. But basically this book is about a girl named Morgan Crow, and she is cursed. Her whole family thinks she's cursed. The entire town, the entire town. Hi. I just realized that I've been talking for half an hour and my phone didn't record it because my storage was full, so it stopped recording, and now I've lost so much time and I'm so very disappointed in everything. So I left off talking about the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. It's about a girl named Morgan Crow who is cursed and destined to die on her 11th birthday. Now, Morgan doesn't die on her 11th birthday. She gets swept away to the wondrous land of Nevermore, and that's where the story begins. This might be a hot take, but I think this is better than Harry Potter. That's just my opinion. You may not agree with me, but I agree with myself, and I say this right here, better than Harry Potter. Now, before you come at me, I've read the first 2 books of Harry Potter, and I've read the first 2 books of Nevermore. And I don't know, I just like these better. You may not agree with me, but I don't know, that's fine. I just like this better. If you like Harry Potter, I would suggest reading this. It gives you those same kind of magical middle grade feels that Harry Potter also gives you, so good recommendation if you like Harry Potter. What comes next? I'm gonna go through these a little bit quicker now because I don't have a lot of storage and I don't want this to be a super long video. The next book is one that I don't own anymore, but I sent this to a friend because I wanted her to read it. And that book is none other than The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book is a queer retelling of the myth of Achilles. And if Greek mythology is at all your thing, I would highly recommend this book. She is so annoying today. What you doing? You want to be in the video, huh? But I'm still gonna talk. All right, I'm just gonna let her do her thing. What I loved most about this book was the absolutely stunning writing. At some point in this book, the writing actually made me cry, and the ending also broke me. So if those things are something that you might be interested in, pick this up. It is absolutely magnificent. Next up, I have 4 books to talk about, 2 duologies. The reason why I'm talking about them together is because I loved them both. I can't decide which one I like more, so I just decided to put them together. And those are none other than the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo. I have these 2 gorgeous hardcovers. I'm so in love with these books. I'm not going to tell you what they are about because if you have been on BookTube at all in 2018, then you already know what these are about, and I'm not going to bore you with another synopsis. You will also probably understand why I love them enough to put them on this list, because this is just a wonderful, wonderful epic fantasy story with an amazing cast of characters. So yes, nothing but love for this duology. The next series is also an epic fantasy story with a bunch of amazing characters, and that is the Stream Raiders duology by Sarah Raasch. I got the first book, These Rebel Ways, in a fairy loot box last year, and I just took the leap of faith and I started reading it, and I absolutely loved it. So the year after, I bought the second book and I loved that too. The books mostly take place on an island that is ruled by raiders, for the most part. There's a lot of political intrigue in this book, and there's also a religious element to this book, and one of the main characters is queer, so there's queer rep in there. I loved this. I might tell you more about it someday, but this is another very epic story with a really, really cool magic system, by the way. The magic system is really awesome because it revolves around plants, which I've never seen before, but I absolutely love because, frankly, that is quite realistic. So yes, very unique magic system, political intrigue, religious element, LGBT rep, basically gay pirates and plant magic. If that sounds like something that you would enjoy, pick this up. I highly recommend it. Okay, the next series that I have to talk about, I read over the course of a bunch of years. I started this series when I think I was still in elementary school, and I finished it when I was in high school. It is the Princesses and Witches of Fantasia by Thea Stilton, who is the sister of Geronimo Stilton. None of those authors actually exist. I think this is some kind of Italian company that writes a bunch of children's books, but this is a series that was supposedly written by the sister of Geronimo Stilton. The first 6 books follow 6 princesses as they face different kinds of struggles in their respective kingdoms, and the second series of 6 books follow those same princesses as they face the threat of these 6 witches who threaten their respective kingdoms in each of the books. In the last series, there's a 7th book called The Queen of Sleep, and that is the final conclusion to the whole series, so in total there are 13 books. This was a ride, and I loved this series when I was young. I loved it so much, part because of how beautiful the books were. They had gorgeous illustrations throughout the books, and it was just a great story. I really enjoyed it. That's all I have to say about it. Actually, no, that's not all I have to say about it. This is one of those series that does not have the number of like what book you're reading from the series on the cover. So when I started reading these books, I actually started reading the second book in the series first because I didn't realize that it was a series. So I started the second book first by accident, but then I quickly recovered and I went and got the first book at the library. But publishers, please put the number of the book on the book so that I can see and that I can start with the right book. The next section of this video is going to be about the most impactful books that I've read. I have 6 to talk about. Actually, I have more than 6 books to talk about, but I have 6 points to go through. The first 2 books that I have to talk about are both books that take place in World War II. Just gonna get ready for the feels. The first one is this graphic novel edition of Anne Frank's diary. I saw this a couple of times in my local bookshop, and every single time that I walked past it, I thought, I really want to have this because the art is so beautiful. I tried to read Anne Frank's diary before, but I couldn't really get into it at the time, so I figured this would be a great, quick way to consume the story. And that's what it ended up being. And I really, really loved it. But of course, it's a true story, and it's very, you know... Obviously, this is a true story, so it's hard to say stuff about it, but it was really impactful. And one thing that I really loved was how intelligent Anne actually is, and what an amazing writer she is, because there are like entire pages of her diary included in this graphic novel, and reading those, I don't know, she wrote this when she was like 14 or 15, but it really read like she was 18 almost. I guess that's all I can say about this. It's really beautiful. This is the Dutch edition. I think there are multiple different languages, but if you want to read this and you don't speak Dutch, then you can get it in English. The second World War II book that I have here is The Twins by Tessa De Loo. Now, this is also the Dutch edition of that book. I'm not sure if there is a translation of this, but basically this follows a set of twins who, after the war, meet each other again in a wellness center in France, and they start talking and they start telling each other the life stories. One of the sisters was sent to the Netherlands right before the war, and the other one stayed behind in Germany. One of the things that I really loved was how this book showed you what the German people went through during the war and how that differed from the experience of other countries. That is something that I really loved about this book. Of course, this one also made me cry because even though this one is fiction, we all know that World War II actually happened and that people were hugely impacted by it. And so this was a tough book to read at times, but really eye-opening in many ways. All right, now on to The Girl with No Name by Marina Chapman. I read this book while I was on vacation in Thailand a couple of years ago, and I really loved this book. It was very easy to get through, but the subject matter was kind of tough. This is a biography. Marina Chapman is actually the main character in this book because it is about her childhood and how she was kidnapped at a very young age and left behind in the jungles of Colombia and basically raised by monkeys until she was 10. When she was 10, she was found by two hunters and taken to a city, I don't remember exactly which city, and sold to a brothel. From there, everything progresses. A good chunk of the book is about her time in the jungle, and then the rest of the book is about her time in the city and being an orphan, basically, and trying to find her way. Some people don't believe that this is a true story. I don't know what I believe, but regardless of whether it's true or not, it's a really, really impactful book and a really beautiful book in many ways. If this sounds at all intriguing, I highly recommend that you read this book because it's a very, very, very interesting story. The next book is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I read this book towards the end of elementary school, I think, and this book, if you haven't heard of it, is about a boy named Augie who has a facial deformity, and he was homeschooled for most of his childhood, and the story starts with him going to a normal school for the first time. It really teaches you a lot about not judging people by the way that they look. The book starts with Augie's perspective, and then it moves to different perspectives. I don't remember too much, unfortunately, because it's been a long time since I've read this, but it was very impactful and it did teach me a lot of valuable lessons, so I highly recommend this one. It feels like I've been here for years. But it's time to talk about the next book. And the next book is none other than Crusade in Jeans by Thea Beckman. I read this one a long time ago. Again, I got it from the library, as most of the books that I'm talking about right now. And this book, guys, this book. If you haven't heard of it, it is about a young boy who time travels back to the year of our Lord 1212 and gets stranded there, and then joins a crusade of children who are on their way to Israel to fight the Muslims, essentially, who were there at the time. This is a very epic adventure, but the reason why it's in this portion of the video is because towards the end, something happens that really kind of opened my eyes to how toxic religion can be and how toxic it has been throughout history. That was a weird lesson to learn as like a 12-year-old, but I'm really happy that I read this book. It was highly entertaining, that too, and I really enjoyed my time reading it. I guess that's all I'm gonna say about that book because it's been a long time since I read it, so I couldn't tell you any more specifics about why I liked it, but that really impactful part towards the end is why it's on this list. And I highly recommend reading it if you have never, because it's a work of art, it's a great story, and it's very entertaining, so read it if you're interested. The next book is one that I actually own, and that is Sky High and Miles Wide by Tonkedracht. Now, I translated that title myself. I'm not sure if there is an English translation of this book anywhere, but I got this book for, I think, my 11th birthday it was, and when I initially got it, I didn't expect to love it as much as I would, but this is by far one of my favorite Dutch children's books ever. It might be a bit more on the young adult side, but I don't know, I think it's sold as middle grade. However, with Dutch literature, that's always like a bit of a gray area. This is a science fiction book set in a future where there are no forests anymore on Earth. The book is about a boy who is a planet researcher, and he has been stationed on Venus for the second time. In this story, there are still forests on Venus, but the humans are incredibly afraid of the forests, and they live under this huge glass dome to protect them from nature. The main character is really fascinated by forests and actually really feels drawn to them and wants to explore them. One day, he's flying over them, and he actually is forced to land, which is incredibly dangerous. Then he's forced to walk through those forests. Everything that happens afterwards is a spoiler. This book kind of makes you think about the way that people communicate and how people aren't always honest, and how you can really create deeper connections with each other if you're honest with each other. And for a young adult or children's book to really delve into that topic that deep is a bit strange, but it's very beautiful, and I've read this book twice, but I want to read it again. So that is why it's on this list, because it teaches a lot about communication and about relationships between people. Okay, we are on the last book on this list, and that book is Ös by Song of Achilles. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it is Turkish and I'm not Turkish, but yes. I read this book for my Dutch class in high school. My teacher would always read us little excerpts from books so that we could eventually pick them up and read them. And when she started on this one, I was pretty much immediately sold. It is written in a very funny way. It's a bit vulgar at times, but I really enjoyed that. It is a book about Turkish immigrants in the Netherlands. Now, that is a topic that will probably only be interesting for Dutch people. There's also not an English translation of this book, but because I am Dutch, it did teach me a lot about the background of Turkish people in this country and what their history is and how they got here and everything, and a bit about their culture. The author of this book took pretty much his own life story and worked some fiction into it. So it is kind of autobiographical, and I don't know, this book made me laugh, but also taught me so many things, and that's why I really love it. So actually this could be on both the favorite section and the impactful section of this video, but I'm gonna put it in impactful because the whole, you know, Turkish immigrant element and what he learned throughout his life and his family just was an amazing thing to read about. So those were all of my favorite books from the 2010s. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this video maybe gave you some ideas for books to read. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, then thank you so much for watching, and please leave some comments with some video ideas. I have a long list of things that I want to do, but if there's anything that you're interested in seeing from me, then please let me know. Don't forget to unsubscribe and leave a dislike, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video. Bye. Today, I have got for you the next thing that I want to talk about. I shouldn't make noises while I'm talking. And this sounded like just the most beautiful. Anyhow, hot take. Okay, fuck my life. Next. Filming is so hard. I swear, being a booktuber is really hard. They don't tell you about all this. No, that's not how I'm gonna describe this story. Jeez. And then it moves to different perspectives from his friend and his sister. Okay, I really have to structure these things better next time.